And we are live. Jayka, Duncan, hello to you.
Hello,
It's a great,
Nathaniel.
it is a great honor to have you here as a guest for this powerful and very sought after. I'm getting a lot of positive feedback for a lot of people who are very interested in this topic, which is the power of surrender and its
Mhm.
unique revelation for you through your journey of sickness and health, through your overcoming a chronic illness, which
Mhm.
it can be debilitating for a lot of people, which is cancer, and even when it came back to being a further stage 4 or metastasized cancer. And we're going to go into that story. I can't wait to just kind of listen to the wisdom. And for those who don't know, I'm Nathaniel Woods. I'm an executive health consultant, coach, analyst, and I help people also do this, like Jayka, find the root cause of their illness, their imbalance, and show them how to empower themselves to heal themselves naturally with nutrition, vitamins, minerals, and a very similar form of this unique thing that Jayka is going to talk about today. And I want to highlight this is really about um, Jayka's journey and Jayka's techniques and tools that she has also come through experience of what is it, 12 years or 14 years that
Since
you
I,
from beginning of diagnosis to like where you are now, how many years roughly?
yeah, 13 years this month, actually. It was May 2007 that I was initially diagnosed the first time.
Well, let I'm just really honored that you're here and you are holding a light for those and giving hope for those who are maybe trusting and completely surrendered, thinking there's not options, trusting the only models that are available, the current medical model, and who have not taken the time or maybe afraid to go out of the normal availability. So you are quite a pioneer. You are quite you really tapped into your inner, let's say, wisdom, knowing, and rebel after going through the medical system. So would you mind just start sharing with us from diagnosis, like what happened with your diagnosis, and then how that led you onto this journey to learn about the power of surrender?
Yes, I would love to. Thanks, Nathaniel. So, as I mentioned, 2007, I was diagnosed the first time, and I just went along with Western medicine and chose to have surgery and chemotherapy, radiation. Then I did hormone therapy. And then there was almost 10 years where I was supposedly cancer free. And I decided during that time, I need to do some investigating and inner work. And so I started to read a lot of self-help books. I started to go to retreats. I started to realize about the importance of emotional health and psychological health. And to be honest with you, I thought, I'm good. I'm good. I've got everything handled. I don't think I'm ever going to have cancer again. And if I can just mention too that my mother died of cancer and
Mm-hmm.
both my grandmothers died of cancer. My father has since passed away of cancer and one of my grandfathers. So cancer was definitely very common in my family. But I thought, I've done all the work. I'm good. And lo and behold, December 2016, I yet again hear the words, you have cancer. And I had promised myself in 2007 that I would never choose chemotherapy again. So that was off the table.
Why is that? Can I ask? Because after a lot of people are, this is the only option they have that they.
Yeah,
Uh,
I learned a lot in those 10 years. And I realized that all of my healthy cells were poisoned as well. And I just thought there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. And then the other component is I have been a health conscious person my entire life. I've exercised, I've eaten incredibly healthy. I have a degree in physical education and I took nutrition courses. And so I was quote unquote doing everything right. And yet still ended up with cancer a second time before the age of 50. And so I thought, okay, if that isn't it, then I need to start looking at the emotional component. And during the 10 years in between the two diagnoses, I read a book that changed my life. And that was The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. And he talks about how our belief is so powerful that we can actually turn on or turn off cancer causing cells, the genes. And that's when I realized, okay, I'm not doomed. Because when I was diagnosed the first time in 2007, there was a doctor that said to me, there was nothing you could have done to prevent this because it is in your family. And I think he said that to make me feel better, but I felt incredibly disempowered because I'm like, well, that means there's nothing I can do to prevent any future diagnoses, and I'm going to go down the same path as my mom. And so when I read that book, The Biology of Belief, I started to realize, okay, all right, there is another way. And the thing is, I thought, okay, I need to change my belief, and I need to change the programming, but I didn't have a clue how. I didn't know, and I was taking all these courses, and it didn't hit me until October 2018 when I got it. And that was thanks to the best news I could have received. Not that I would have agreed with you at that time, but I was told there is active cancer in your uterus and in your cervix. And so now all of a sudden it's stage 4. And that news literally brought me to my knees. And I remember thinking, I don't know what else to do anymore. What else do I need to do? I'm doing everything. I had done all kinds of holistic modalities that weren't working. And something in me, finally it clicked. And I realized I need to get out of my own way. And I need to be in a place of allowance and surrendering. And so kind of everything that I had learned up until that point started to fall together and started to piece together. And I created my surrender practice. And less than 4 months later, I was told there is no active cancer in your body.
Wow. Wow. Can I ask a few questions?
Yes, please.
That is just, that's remarkable. Less than 4 months later, after you started what you're calling a surrender practice, which I'd like to go deeper into what exactly you mean by that. But before then, most people would think they go through, 10 years of chemo radiation and their life. I mean, they went through the hormone therapy, the poison. You said you did a lot of research. No, you said you learned a lot of things. My question is, did you do research and learn a little more that maybe the chemo wasn't as supportive of your health as you thought it was initially?
Oh, definitely. And you know what? In 2007, I didn't want to do chemotherapy either.
Oh.
But the doctors instilled enough fear in me. I had 2 young children at the time. And I thought, you know what? I can't have my children grow up without a mom. And so I chose for them. And I chose for my husband. I
Wow.
didn't choose for me.
Wow,
And
that's so big right there. That is
it
so
really
big.
is. It
Because
really is. So if I can just mention this, what I've learned is that because I didn't choose for me, there was resistance already within me. Right. And when you are in this place of resistance at an energetic level, you are not able to receive. And so already I know now that because I didn't want to do it, but there was enough fear instilled in me that I did, that resistance prevented my body from really being able to heal from it. Now that I know how incredibly important your belief system is. Yeah.
wow. Wow. I'm hearing surrender practice, the words, and then I'm thinking in fear and the diagnosis. And I think in my mind, and I think I just empathically, I feel like a lot of people are pressured into through fear that make choices that they think are going to be good for them. And it's a different kind of surrender. So how would you distinguish the difference between the surrender practice that you're doing that has helped you heal versus the surrender practice that many many people do that are kind of like being called a pushover in a way, is what I call them, or
Right.
people pleaser. How do you distinguish
So,
the difference?
well, yeah, lots of people have are misconceived ideas about what surrendering is, or the kind of surrendering that and so for me, I surrendered my ego. I surrendered to love, right? And so my ego felt all of this fear and had all of these limiting beliefs of I'm not worthy, I'm not lovable, I'm not skinny enough, I'm not smart enough. The list goes on and on. And these were all limiting beliefs that were really lies that the ego has, right? And so when I finally surrendered, I surrendered the ego and everything to do with the ego, and started to rise above the ego and started to let go of those limiting beliefs. And as I was letting go of these limiting beliefs, and I was spending 3 hours or more in meditation, I call it a meditation, where I finally allowed myself to be with these limiting beliefs and all of the emotions that were attached to it. And as I was holding space and being with it, being an allowance of it every single day, whatever arose, I held space for it. I told myself, it's okay. It's okay that I'm afraid of cancer. It's okay that I think I'm not smart enough. It's okay. And the way I explain it is that the ego is kind of a darkness, right? That a lot of the egoic emotions are darker, heavier emotions of fear and anger and guilt and shame. And so I started to rise above it and shine the light on it. And when you shine the light on the darkness, I mean, we all know that the darkness cannot survive in the light. And it started to dissipate. It started to dissipate. And so the very first thing that I surrendered was my fear of cancer and dying from cancer. And so I literally would be with that in silence, hold space for it, tell myself it's absolutely okay to be afraid. It's okay. It's natural. It's an emotion. It's a human emotion. It's okay to be afraid. And I would tell myself, I love you. I see you. I hear you. I acknowledge you. It's okay. And I just kept shining the light on that fear. And eventually I would feel it dissipate. And I knew it was gone when I just all of a sudden felt this inner peace. My body started to relax. And I realized at that time, when the fear was gone, the subject that, the limiting belief or whatever it was that I was afraid of, so in this case, cancer and dying from cancer, became a non-issue because the fear was gone. I was 100% okay with the fear, which means there was no fear. And I was no longer triggered by the idea of cancer. And I was no longer triggered by the idea of dying from cancer. So I was neutral, which is a higher vibration. And then I would follow that with just this neutrality. There was so much peace and patience and love and compassion. And so then I would just bask in that vibration. And I would then visualize myself vibrantly healthy. And I had a visualization where I was backpacking in Nepal to base camp with a Sherpa, carrying my backpack, and a beautiful close friend of mine. That was my visualization. And then I would allow myself to feel the gratitude and feel the freedom and feel the zest for life. And I would literally bask in that for however long possible. And I knew then that is where the healing happens. That's, I had let go of the limiting belief and then literally rose above it and then just, basked, floated, bathed, however you want to put it. I was in that place, and I did this day in, day out. And the irony is, like I said, it was the first thing that I surrendered was my fear of dying. And when I let go of that, that's when I truly started to live, because the fear was gone. And I was truly in a place of, you know what, if it's my time, it's my time. And I was okay with it because I was able to see it from a different perspective. As you and I both know, and many people know, we're eternal, right? We're eternal. And so when you look at it from that beautiful, infinite place, you realize that there is no such thing as death. And it's okay. It's okay. Yeah. And I just kept doing this day after day after day. I had no idea I was healing my body to the extent. I was just doing what felt right. I had really learned to listen to my intuition and to trust it and let myself be guided. And that was another reason why I didn't choose surgery. I had already, decided chemo was not an option, but I also chose not to have surgery again. They wanted to do a full mastectomy, but my intuition was saying, no, surgery is not going to help you. And so anyone that's listening, I highly recommend that you start to tune into your intuition and trust it, because the wisdom that is there is beyond our comprehension. It really is.
I just wanted to ask you, how would you describe your intuition? So maybe some people aren't in touch with it or really.
Mm-hmm. So your intuition is basically your higher self, which does not reside in the future. It does not reside in the past. And so the very first thing that I teach people is to be very present in the moment, in the moment. Then I also encourage people, when we're in our head and we're overthinking things, that's often also very fearful and there's doubt and whatnot. And so I encourage people to drop into their heart. And where your thoughts are is where your energy is. And so if you're not sure how to drop into your heart, you just think of your heart space, your heart chakra, and reside there. Be very present and start to become really aware. Become really aware of everything, your surroundings, your thoughts, your self-talk, your emotions. Become really aware of everything and not judge it. Be okay with it. Be in full allowance of it. Your higher self is 100% in allowance of everything. There is no good, there is no bad. It's all neutral. And so allowance is a big part. And so as you're sitting in meditation and you're being very present, and let's say that monkey mind starts, going crazy, the minute you become aware, be okay with it. It's okay. It's all right. Because if you resist it and you beat yourself up, well, that's just more ego, right? And it's during that time, during meditation. And so really starting a meditation practice is a very important component as well. Be as present as much as possible, but not just during meditation. Throughout the day, become more aware, become the witness of your actions, your reactions, your thoughts, your emotions, everything. And you start to be able to distinguish between the inner voice that is your ego and your inner voice that is your higher self. And guaranteed, your higher self does not ever put you down. Never. So if it doesn't make you feel good, if you're beating yourself up over something, if there's anger, if there's jealousy, if there's guilt or shame, then know that that's your ego. But if you are feeling empowered, then that's your higher self. Now, I will say this. My inner self, I have referred to her as my inner shit disturber. So, yes, your higher self has an amazing perspective beyond our comprehension. And because of that perspective, my higher self has gotten me to do things, to say things that has really thrown me way out there, out of my comfort zone, because my higher self knew that that's where growth was. So, for example, I wrote a book called Healed by Cancer. And initially, I was just going to write about my experience and skim over this, that, and the other, because, didn't have to have too much information about. Anyhow, my higher self is like, no, you need to write about this, and you need to write about that, and you need to go into detail about that. And I remember sitting there thinking, no, nobody needs to know about that. These are secrets. Anyhow, I had made the pact with myself. When my higher self speaks up, if she says jump, I say how high. And so I'm like, all right, apparently I'm writing about secrets. Apparently I'm going to be really vulnerable. And so I have written about things that I never would have written about from an egoic point of view. And so it's really, if someone is wanting to learn to be more intuitive, be patient with yourself, be gentle with yourself. And if there's fear coming up, if there's a voice that says, you can do this, you can do this, you can write this book, or you can go and travel the world, or you can start this business, and you feel uncomfortable and you feel nervous and vulnerable, that's your ego saying, whoa, this is unfamiliar territory. And that means it's not safe. Right. And so then I encourage people to rise above that. When you feel vulnerability, do it anyway, because that is where growth is. That truly is where growth is what I have learned in my healing journey is that I essentially let go of all of my old programs. I call them my cancer causing programs, my cancer causing identity. I let go of all of that. And there was many times that I felt incredibly vulnerable, and I still do, because I know that if I'm too comfortable, that means that it's an old program. And it's comfortable because I've done it for 50 plus years, right? So the sense of vulnerability is a good gauge. It really is. Yeah. Yeah. And this surrender practice that I do is a lifelong practice. I am still surrendering every day. Absolutely. Every day stuff comes up. And and I'd like to just mention too that the book that I wrote, it's called Healed by Cancer, but it's not a book about cancer. Cancer was my symptom. And so for all of the viewers, whether you have heart disease, or you struggle with diabetes, or you have multiple sclerosis, or struggle with obesity, whatever, that isn't the issue. The issue isn't the issue. It's a symptom of a much deeper issue. And so when you get to the root cause of it, you can heal from there. And so I realized that cancer wasn't the problem. I had all kinds of father issues. I realized that my father wasn't the problem. I realized that immigrating to Canada at a tender age of 13, which created all kinds of limiting beliefs, that wasn't the problem. The problem was that I didn't love myself. I didn't believe in myself. That was right. And so when I started to let go of all these limiting beliefs, what this did is it actually cleared the path, because we all have this essence. Every single one of us have this essence, which is this beautiful unconditional love. And when I started to remove all of the baggage, all the lies, all the limiting beliefs, I started to reconnect with my essence. And it was amazing. It is amazing. And the only way I can explain it is this feeling of tenderness and gentleness that you would feel for like a brand new baby. It is such an unconditional love. And all of us are that. It's just that so many of us have it covered up and we are not connected to it. So a surrendering practice allowed me to reconnect with me, which is love. And that love heals. Love heals. I got a much, much deeper understanding of that simple phrase. Love heals. It does.
A lot of potent medicine right there. And it's more potent than chemotherapy. And it won't be bald. I'm kidding. Um, no, jokes aside, forgive me if anybody's offended by that. I like to make light of situations that are sometimes a little heavy.
Yes, yes. You know what? This is the lightest topic ever.
All right.
It
Love,
really is.
loving
It
our
really is.
can be, right?
Because when you are doing a surrender practice, you realize that you are the light, and the joy that has arisen. Just last week, I was surrendering some frustrations and some anger, and I let that go. And I was out on the trails, and I started skipping. There was just so much energy surging through me, and I was feeling like a kid again. And many people, when they talk about um, doing the inner work, they can refer to it as shadow work, or they can Eckhart Tolle refers to it as the pain body. And then there's also the inner child work that some people refer to it as. And so I realized that my ego is really that little girl in me. And as I have been acknowledging this little girl and loving her unconditionally,
Mm.
she's coming out to play. And so when I'm out on the trails now, I just feel so light and so beautiful. And this childlike joy that I feel is magical. It's magical. Yeah.
That reminds me, something that might be really relevant and helpful is you mentioned that you believe these negative fears, these cancer programs, these beliefs and ego structures, negative beliefs that were directly connected to your diagnosis and your condition, and you had tried so many things. And what I've learned from childhood psychology and from brain development and childhood development is the first 7 years. And sorry, and I'm connecting this to your joyful child that you're sharing now. Is
Mm-hmm.
The first 7 years of our life, as some people say 8 years, our brain is in a constant state of hypnosis.
Yeah.
The brainwave state is referred to as the theta brainwave state, and it is where, before we have developed our prefrontal cortex to actually reason and have some more critical analysis,
Mm-hmm.
discernment. And what I'm feeling, I'm curious, is do you think that some of the beliefs or some of the thinking that you still had in your 50s when this was coming back was something linked to your early childhood at all, or
Oh my
have
goodness.
developed there?
Absolutely.
Why do you think so?
Absolutely. Because, well, I mean, part of, the early years, we are so programmable, and so much of it is mimicking our parents. And I mimic my mother, and I see it in my behavior. I saw myself reacting in a way. I write about this in my book, actually. I was a workaholic. My mother was a workaholic. And I remember giving her heck at one point, 20 years ago, because she just wasn't slowing down. And I was like, Mom, sit, have a cup of tea, relax, and I caught myself doing the exact same thing, you know, 15 years later. And I wasn't aware until I was aware. And I remember sitting there thinking, oh my goodness, that was my mom coming through. And so we mimic our parents.
Mm-hmm.
And still, there are still moments that, sometimes old habits die hard. And
Well,
so
that's a good saying. I love that.
yeah. And so sure enough, that had come up, and I had stuffed something down because I was really good at stuffing things down. I was raised by a father who loved me, but it was conditional. And so I learned at a very early age to be a people pleaser and to meet those conditions. And what that did was, I had no self-confidence in myself. I always assumed other people knew more than me, and I was a puppet. And I thought, I'm only worthy if I meet these conditions and if I make people happy. And of course, this didn't stop with just my father. It is how I was with everyone in the world for the most part. And it really undervalued, and I was disrespecting myself. And as a result, I struggled with an eating disorder for decades. And
Mm,
like I said, I was a workaholic because I thought I had to prove my self-worth. I had a very stressful relationship with money. I had an awful relationship with myself,
mm.
and a very stressful relationship with my father.
Sorry, what do you mean exactly by a stressful relationship with money and awful relationship with yourself? Just so I have an idea.
I didn't, I wasn't respectful towards myself. I didn't see myself as worthy. I was told through a ceremony, you are worthy simply because you were born. And that statement, at the time, I was like, I know I'm worthy. I know I'm worthy. And then when I started to go deeper, I was like, oh my goodness, absolutely not. This eating disorder had so much to do with the fact that I thought if I'm not skinny and if I'm not fit, because I was also an over exerciser, if I'm not skinny and if I'm not fit, I'm not lovable. I'm not worthy. So I had all of these putting so much pressure on myself. If I'm not the perfect mom, if I'm not the perfect wife, daughter, friend, I'm not worthy. And so I had so many lies that I believed about myself. And this people pleasing, and there are many, many people pleasers out there in the world. And as I was journeying within and putting the microscope on myself, I also realized a lot of it had to do with being female. And so the collective feminine energy as a whole, there's a lot of healing that still needs to be done. And the only way that we can heal is to go within. We cannot rely on, the male counterparts to do it for us. We need to do it. We need to believe in ourselves, and we need to love ourselves and know that we are worthy simply because we were born. And that being female has nothing to do with it. And that is something that I truly started to uncover, was the truth. As I was surrendering, I was uncovering the truth. And it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. And I was just wanting to share also, because I think we're getting close to the end of our interview probably, that the book that I wrote, Healed by Cancer, it's available on Amazon, both as an ebook and as an actual book, but I'm offering it for free as an audio book. And so if anyone would like to learn more about this surrender practice, because it's really too much to go into detail about in a half an hour interview, right? I really go into quite a bit of detail in the book about my experiences, my limiting beliefs, and how I let them go. And I've had many, many people contact me from all areas, from all walks of life, from mostly women, but men as well. And no matter what their religion or what their race or anything is, people have contacted me and say, wow, you just wrote my story. I can so relate, because I talked about body image, and I talk about money, and I talk about relationships, and I talk about work, and and physical health, and so I cover all areas, and most people can relate in one or usually more areas. So yeah. So I'd like to offer that, and I'm assuming that it will be in the post.
Yeah, I will include that for anybody who is interested, who I urge and encourage all of you, and even if you don't have any issues now, I encourage you to click the link below in the description
Mm-hmm.
and receive her
Yeah.
gift.
Well, and if I can interject quickly, if you don't have any issues now, oh my goodness, what a beautiful place to start.
Yes.
Because it's so much easier to prevent, right?
Oh yes, and I was actually gonna to dovetail with you. Um, the CDC, the Center of Disease, is suggesting that 1 in 2 people will have a relationship with cancer in the coming years.
Yeah.
It's getting to be outrageous, I would say.
Yeah.
So
It
it's
is.
not it's not that, according to the Center of Disease Centers and the people who are measuring these, it is so growing rapidly that this is something that everyone needs to arm themselves with, to empower themselves and be preventative with this knowledge, as it's essential to understand. And here is the resource of somebody who's done it, who has gone through the process for 13 years of her own personal experience condensed into one digestible, listenable perspective. And but you also guide people through this process if they don't want to just read the book. Is that right?
Yes, so I coach people as well, and I have a website. It's called innerhealthouterwealth.com. And I write a blog. And so, yes, please, I would love for people to reach out. For the month of May, I'm offering a discount. And yes, just send me an email as well. That's also a possibility. Jayka Duncan at yahoo.com is my email. And let's put the microscope on you and see what makes you tick. And if there are any limiting beliefs lurking about, now's the time to let go of those, because they're lies. Anything that does not point to the fact that you're whole and love and amazing and powerful isn't the truth, right? And it's about embracing ourselves authentically and owning, and forgiving and being compassionate for yourself. And when you can be that for yourself, it is an automatic that you end up feeling it for others as well. But it starts within. It starts within. Because if there is shame or guilt or anger, it festers in the body. It festers and it shows up. It creates dis-ease in the body, and it will eventually show up. And, in the form of, in my case, cancer. And why wait? Why wait? Get to it now.
Oh, I'd like to just say an apology to you, Jayka, and from symbolically from the male to the female, and as a male, on behalf of all men, past and future, to all women, I apologize for the harm we have caused you.
Thank you.
I apologize, and we take responsibility, and we do want to be. We truly, when we're not lost or misguided or taught, we want to provide and protect for you, and we want to uplift you and be equals. So I just wanted to say that for the parts to acknowledge that there's a male-female dynamic that contributes to what you were saying is some of these beliefs that are related to being a female, actually. And I understand that, as I work with 80 to 90% females, because they tend to be more open and ready for change and to take ownership of some of their stuff. And I really appreciate that about that. And finally, as a practitioner myself, who is in the trenches working with people who are, high performers, entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders in their field, to people who have cancer in stage 3, stage 4, like you did. I see people who are at this hopeless place. I see them with their negative beliefs. And I actually have to love them through them learning to love themselves. So, when I'm when I'm analyzing their health through reading their iris of their eye, I can tell how much stress someone is holding. I can tell how much pain they've been in. I can see how much on their face and their teeth, and through the analysis I do. So I really just want to speak as a practitioner and a holistic health consultant who's seen dozens and dozens of people heal themselves and help them do this from a nutritional level, from a vitamin mineral deficiency, from a toxicity level, getting rid of candida, mold, yeast, fungus, these things that actually can be a byproduct of negative beliefs. There is a connection between toxic infections and toxic mind and toxic thinking. Well, I just want to say that this is the real deal, and this is a pair thing. It is a lifestyle, and these things are mixed together, and they enhance each other, and they support each other, and they give and lend to each other, kind of just like the masculine and feminine should do.
Yes, I fully agree. And you know how important, like you said, diet and supplements and all of that is. And because I had always been a really health conscious person, I realized that when my body was functioning from fear, which was really all the time, it wasn't, it was in survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, your digestion, your metabolism, your hormones, everything is compromised. And so my body was not able to absorb all the goodness from food, from supplements, from everything that I was trying. And so yes. And so if you can raise your vibration, let go of fear, let go of anger, and then also live a healthy life and make sure you get enough movement and you eat healthy and you get some supplements. It's really, it's a combo. It's a combo.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
Jake,
listening to the whispers of your body is
yeah, listening. I couldn't agree more. And for those who want to find out more how to listen and surrender, I encourage you to get her book, receive her wisdom, learn from her mistakes, learn from her learnings, and hear from her perspective. And it might just give you some nuggets and keys that might just really take you to the next step in your journey, or who knows, all the way.
yeah. Well, I look forward to connecting with everyone. And thank you so much, Nathaniel, for having me on. I've really enjoyed our chat.
Mhm. Yeah, it's an honor. And I hope there'll be many more opportunities to share your message, as I think we
Yes.
all need to hear it.
Yes, absolutely. Okay.
Mm.